We have a savings rate which is negative, and if we had true capitalism, this would be very, very serious because we'd have no savings and no capital to invest. Today, with our monetary system, we resort to other means. We can create credit and money out of thin air, and it acts as capital by stealing value from the existing currency. And we've been doing that for a long time. So the process can continue, but it literally is the inflation. Also, we can resort to borrowing overseas, and we're permitted, because we have the reserve currency of the world, to export our inflation, and that seems to be a free ride for us as well. But how long can we fool the world? How long can we continue with a current account deficit of 6%? If our productive jobs are going overseas, and like the gentleman mentioned earlier about these more jobs going overseas, eventually this is going to catch up with us. Is it conceivable that we could live on capital formation by creation of money and credit out of thin air? If that's the case, we would never have to go to work again if that's true. But I see so many of our problems as a consequence of a monetary system that discourages savings, encourages a free ride for us, because there is still a lot of trust for the dollar, although that trust is going down every day. And I think we have to face up to the consequences of what this might mean to us.
Congressman, you're absolutely right that we're also relying pretty heavily on borrowing from abroad, which is our current account deficit. I think that's sustainable for a while because foreigners seem quite interested in acquiring U.S. assets. We have very deep and liquid financial markets. However, I also agree with you that that's not a long-term sustainable situation by any means. I would be pleased to take your questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I know that you have to be careful in the terms you use, and in particular of using terms that might become self-fulfilling prophecies. You have to be careful in the terms you use, and in particular of using terms that might become self-fulfilling prophecies.
But it's his experience with global markets that sets Paulson apart from his predecessors, John Snow and Paul O'Neill. When you were chosen, a lot of people said your greatest strength in this job would be your potential to handle a major global financial crisis. And
Let's hope I don't get an opportunity.
You haven't had it yet, but what's the one you spend the most time worrying about and thinking about?
Well, George, one of the things I've learned is that, first of all, I don't have a crystal ball. You never know what's going to happen in the financial markets.
When you were chosen, a lot of people said your greatest strength in this job would be your potential to handle a major global financial crisis.
The Secretary of the Treasury said to me, Nancy, it can't wait until then. And then the White House called and said, we'll set up the meeting in your office. So then it became bipartisan and bicameral, and they came and told us this dismal story of the state of our economy, and then had this, what they call break the glass proposal. Right. Well, they used an analogy. This is more on the subject than you want to know.
No, it's not.
An analogy.
People want to hear from...
Well, it's the news analogy, and this is not funny, but they use the analogy of a heart attack, that an economy is having a heart attack, and we've got to clear the artery.
I'll remember that night as much as I think I remember the morning of 9/11, because it was that dramatic an evening when the chairman of the Federal Reserve tells 15 of us or 16 of us in that room in Nancy Pelosi's chambers that unless we acted, the financial system of this country and maybe the world would melt down. They'll use those words in a very kind of calm voice.
If anybody can answer this question, I would like it. How did we get to the point that the failure of one firm can bring us to the edge of collapse, our whole financial markets? How do you let the entire financial system become so fragile that it could not tolerate one failure? How do you let the entire financial system become so fragile that it could not tolerate one failure?
He's out of government, and he's talking exclusively with our John Harwood. John.
Hey, Mark, you know, a year ago, Neel Kashkari was the $700 billion man. Now he's chopping wood most days out in Lake Tahoe with his wife and trying to decompress. But I just sat down with him a few minutes ago to talk about that pressure cooker he was in back then, how all those major decisions went down, and whether he thinks they did the right thing. Take a listen.
I feel very good about that. You know, we didn't know that our programs would work. Sitting here today, a year later, I feel blessed that our programs appear to have worked, treasuries, the feds, the FDICs. But at the time, we were making our best shot, and we were hoping they would work, but we didn't know. What is your...
My stomach knotted up, and usually when I'm playing offense, the fear goes away because I know what to do. But for that moment there, I had no idea what to do. And I knew everyone was going to be looking to me for answers. So as I say in the book, I stepped out of the room, because I just didn't want to do this in front of other people, took my cell phone out of my pocket, walked in, and called my wife at home and just simply said, Wendy, this is really tough. I'm scared. People are looking to me. I don't know what to do. Pray for me. And then I pulled myself together and put back on my armor and went down and pretended like I knew what we were going to do. We were all going to